Hey, everybody, welcome. Big aloha to you. I'm Natalie, and this is Life After a Cult, the channel where we expose cult nonsense. We laugh at those absurdities, and we try to unbrainwash ourselves in the process. And I feel like there's a lot of that happening this week, and it's only Wednesday. Scientology just bought another street. A psychologist just dropped some serious truth bombs about their mind games, and a YouTuber with 3 million subscribers just reacted to Aaron Kyro's viral controversy, of course, involving Scientology. So basically, it's just another totally normal day in the world of cult nonsense. So buckle up, grab your emotional support beverage, and let's get into the madness. Thank you so much, moderators, for being here. I appreciate it. And members, thank you for being here. I see you there. Everyone in the live chat, welcome. If you are on the replay, aloha to you. Jump in those comments, answer our question of the day. And our question of the day is, if you could give Tom Cruise one piece of advice, one piece of life advice, what would it be? Jump in the chat. Let me know if you're on the replay. Jump in those comments. I love going back and reading them. Okay, so let's see. Let's jump into the first story here. First story here. We need to talk about what's happening in Clearwater. And actually, we're going to talk about this a couple times in this video. So this is from the Tampa Bay Times. Clearwater moves forward with plans for Scientology project downtown. The church requested the city vacate a portion of a downtown avenue for a pedestrian-friendly green space. And I know what you're thinking, like, what? Friendly? Scientology? Do those things go together? Not really. Let's look at this article here, and then we'll get more into this. So Clearwater residents and city council members, they engaged in an impassionate debate Monday night over the future of a parking lot. Companies tied to the Church of Scientology have purchased at least 200 properties within Clearwater's downtown since 2017. And the church is seeking to buy the city-owned lot on Garden Avenue between Franklin and Court Street. It's proposing to use it as a performance hall and plaza. So that's been their plan, right, is to make this L. Ron Hubbard Hall so that they don't have to go to Ruth Eckerd Hall. Maybe their plan in building this hall is they'll have permanent giant palms out front to block people who are live streaming and protesting Scientology, just already built into the landscaping. At Ruth Eckerd Hall, where they went for their March 13th L. Ron Hubbard's birthday event, they had to bring in all these tall plants and trees and line them up on a corner in an effort to keep people live streaming and protesting Scientology away. It did not work. Farrell, Cheryl, Sandy McKenna, Dusty, they just ended up using it as shade, which was kind of nice because Florida's hot, y'all. Let's be honest. Supporters of the project argued that the lot is difficult to enter or exit when there's heavy traffic toward the beach and said they welcome a development that taxpayers won't have to fund. Opponents argued that the Church of Scientology already controls downtown, which is filled with vacant buildings and businesses. And that is so true. It is some next level North Korea looking stuff in downtown Clearwater because Scientology buys all these properties. Because remember, we went over an earlier article about that said that David Miscavige basically got butthurt because he wasn't allowed to buy something. And so he sent his people far and wide buying up these 200 properties in Clearwater, which puts this stranglehold on the community there. Let's see. So the sale was tentatively approved by a 3-1 vote Monday that one council member said was a straightforward decision. It's what, a 60-foot street with 20 parking spaces that nobody uses. Let's be real. Council member Ryan Cotton, who supported working with the church during his election campaign last year, said Monday night. So no surprise there. The purchase and sale agreement will come back to the council during its March 31st work session. And if it proceeds, it will advance to the April 3rd council meeting for a final decision. So even though they're really far down the road on this, right, it is not completely done yet. That seems pretty clear. The deal requires that a majority of the land be preserved as a green space, and it's tentatively set with a price tag of $1.375 million. City manager Jennifer something, said the church has been planning for several years to build an event hall of its flag building. And we know this, right? They've been fundraising for this for a while too. It submitted its request to acquire the land on South Garden Avenue in December. And if given final approval, the church will have to substantially complete the project by the end of 2029. If it doesn't finish by then, it can pay a non-refundable $300,000 a year to the city to extend the contract. By the end of 2033, if the deal would expire and the city could withdraw from it, the ownership of the land won't change until Scientology has permits and completes the majority of the project. That's interesting. The ownership of the land won't change until the church has permits and completes the majority of the project. Several community members came to speak against the proposal. So I think that's interesting, because one of the issues is, like, if you're giving David Miscavige and Scientology everything that they want without holding them accountable to actually getting these projects done, then how can you put any demands on them? There's all those empty storefronts. And at the end of the day, the big lie here is that Scientology is trying to create something that is welcoming to the entire community of Clearwater, of other tourists. It's just not happening. Scientology wants to create their own Scientology community and keep people away. Otherwise, they would be putting businesses into the other buildings that they own in downtown Clearwater. They would be doing something with that. And them creating a green space, okay, well, that's great. Green spaces are wonderful. But is it really going to be friendly for the community? Is Scientology going to decide who can be there, who can't be there? Is Scientology going to have 50 million cameras up catching everything everybody's doing in that park? There's a lot of questions and a lot that is disturbing about this. And we're going to look a little later in this video, we're going to look at Mark Bunker, who spoke at the council meeting. We're going to look at a clip of his video. So we're going to look at that a little bit later. So more to come on that. And again, they've got a couple more rounds with the city council for them to get through to get this done. And David Miscavige himself personally met individually with Clearwater City Council meetings to, really get these things going. So there's a really hard push by Scientology to get this done. All right, now we got to talk a little bit about this Keith Urban, Nicole Kidman story, because I find this interesting. Where is this? Where was it? So this is a story, Nicole Kidman's Joy, Bella and Sunday's secret reunion in Oz. Now, so Bella is Nicole Kidman's daughter with Tom Cruise, and Sunday is Nicole Kidman's daughter with Keith Urban. And based on this story, it sounds like, if this is true, Keith Urban is trying to bring the family together. Nicole Kidman lost her mother not that long ago and has been devastated, of course, which makes sense. And it does seem that what this is saying is Keith Urban wants to bring the family together because he knows it'll help Nicole in her healing, because she's devastated from the loss of her mom, Janelle, who passed away in September. Now, let's see. Friends say the 57-year-old country star is convinced he can reunite Nicole with her adopted daughter, Bella Cruz. Keith is worried sick about Nicole, a source reveals. Throughout all the turmoil of the past 6 months, she's not let anyone down. She's been so strong for Sunday and Faith, which are her daughters with Keith Urban, and still kept going. But he sees how drained she is and how hard it is for her to sleep. This is a man who's been by her side for decades, and he knows how much she longs for her missing kids. And you guys know the story that Scientology had everything to do with creating a rift between Connor and Bella Cruz and their mom, Nicole Kidman, when Nicole left Scientology. And Nicole Kidman did a lot of Scientology. So she started on the operating Thetan levels. I don't think she started operating Thetan level 3, where you learn about Xenu and the body Thetans. I don't think so. I think she did 1 or 2, but then didn't go further than that. But that means she had to go through clear. So basically, she was a full-blown Scientologist. She did a lot. Then they split. Scientology got involved and was like basically with Connor and Bella. I mean, there have been whistleblowers who were involved. The people who actually did it have since left Scientology and said, oh yeah, we did that. We totally did that. We split them up. We turned the kids against her. We got them convinced she was a suppressive person, all of the things. So Keith Urban, I think it's actually really sweet that he's trying to do this. So Bella has lived in London since 2015. She's married to a guy in IT. Her brother Connor remains in Scientology, living in Clearwater, so kind of belly of the beast. And he also is married. Goes on to talk about how, although still attached to Scientology, Bella hasn't let that get in the way of a long distance relationship with her mom. And in 2016, she rubbished claims they weren't on speaking terms, despite Nicole not attending her 2015 wedding. So when Bella got married in 2015, I mean, even Tom Cruise wasn't there. Neither of her parents were there. I remember reading something that said it was pretty much a small and intimate wedding there. Let's see. What else does this say here? Of course we talk. They're my parents. Anyone who says otherwise is full of crap, Bella told the Daily Mail. So Bella Cruz has been pushing back on like, no, I talked to my mom. What are you guys talking about? And, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. Is it just over social media? Because she has recently liked some posts that her sister was in. Like just last week, Bella liked Nicole's 16-year-old daughter, Sunday Rose's Instagram post from her recent W magazine shoot, which Keith is taking as a sign Bella is keen to start building a relationship with Sunday and their family. So I find it very interesting that you got Bella Cruz over here like, what do you mean I talked to my mom? That's not true at all. Yet Keith Urban, who is living with Nicole Kidman, is like, yeah, this is devastating to Nicole. If they had a relationship, then why would Keith Urban be trying to put a relationship back together? So my money is on Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman being on the right in this one. I don't think maybe Bella's, I don't know what the extent is of their communication, but I'm not buying that it is the type of relationship that you would have with your mom. Is she just trying to maintain a mild connection to push back on the narrative that Scientology is a family destroying human trafficking cult? Maybe just show that, no, we do talk, but I don't know. I'm not buying it. Tell me what you guys think. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that Bella Cruz does not have a relationship with her mom and this is just a bunch of fluff. And then put a 2 if you think she does and that I'm just being extra. It's just when I hear Keith Urban trying to work on repairing this family and he lives with Nicole Kidman, that's where my money is. So 1 in the chat if you agree with that. What a beautiful photo too. This is cute. That's her daughter there. It's nothing short of heaven for Nicole to see Bella and Sunday connect like this. She accepts Connor's devotion to Scientology will keep him from her. Now, here's the thing that doesn't make sense there in that article is they're both committed to Scientology. Bella and Connor. It's not just Connor. Connor lives in Clearwater, right? The belly of the beast. And Bella lives in London, but she did a lot of training at Scientology there. So I'm like, I think they got that part wrong. Healing their family. So Keith Urban is planning a big get together, ideally in Australia, where Sunday and Faith can really bond with Bella. He knows it will give Nicole that sense of wholeness that she's craved ever since he's known her. And that is interesting too. Like, okay, how great would it be to see that type of reunion? I would love it. Let's see, does they talk about Scientology anymore in here? So Keith Urban, according to a source, Keith and the kids are the driving force behind Nicole taking the time to properly heal after the loss of her beloved mom. I find it interesting too that the idea that I get from reading these articles, and I don't know Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, right? I'm just gleaning what I can from these articles, but it sounds like Nicole Kidman really threw herself into work, which is a lot of times what people do. It's what I've done, right? When you're going through grief. And I kind of was questioning in my head, like, I wonder, is any of that residual from Scientology and their viewpoint on production and producing and how hard you need to work and how you should just compartmentalize your emotions and push it over here? You know what I'm saying? Because again, Nicole Kidman was very involved in Scientology, received a lot of Scientology auditing. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of that is not still a holdover. But then again, people never in Scientology, but all in on ending this cult, have done the same thing. When you have a very difficult situation, sometimes we throw ourselves into work as something else to act more as a distraction. But what I think is really cool is Keith Urban. I mean, how cool is that? Trying to reunite them. And if nothing else, it's really bringing the conversation forward again about the Scientology's practice of disconnection. And I think it can also bring awareness to how damaging this is. Now, if Bella Cruz does go to Australia and reunites with her mom and her sisters like that, I mean, that's not a bad look either for Scientology, because you can say like, oh no, look, they're having, even if it were just for public relations reasons, which I don't know if they would go that far, but I'm very on the fence about if this is real or not with Bella wanting to have a relationship. Julie O'Connell says, Keith Urban is so amazing. What a sweet thing to do, knowing that, your wife is suffering like that. I appreciate that. Okay, we got to go over to the UK for a little bit here. And we need to talk about, there's a video, and I believe there's an article out too on his blog from Apostate Alex. He did a video and it's entitled Council Refuses to Meet Scientology Survivors, but confirms our concerns have been heard. This is interesting. Let's take a look at a little clip here and see what he has to say.
Just throw in here at the moment that I have requested to meet with East Grinstead Town Council on multiple occasions. I'm not asking to meet with East Grinstead Town Council because I want them to act to stop the abuse in Scientology. That's not their role. East Grinstead Town Council do not have the authority or the ability to raid St. Hill or to step in to stop the abuse. However, they do have the power to review their close relationship with Scientology, and they do have the power to listen to local residents who are concerned about their close relationship. So when I've requested to meet with the Grinstead Town Council in the past, it has purely been from the angle of wanting to educate them on Scientology's policy of safe pointing, explaining to them how it works, and explaining to them that how a mayor going to a Scientology event impacts survivors of abuse.
That is such an excellent point, and I'm glad that Apostate Alex is continuing to bring that forward and call them out on this. How do you not, if you're going to meet with Scientology, how do you not meet with survivors of Scientology? How do you not hear both sides of that? And this is something we see over and over again. Scientology is good at doing what they call their safe pointing, where they meet with elected officials and law enforcement and wine and dine them and get them to hobnob with the few remaining Scientology celebrities to win them over, to gain that favor and get them to look the other way. At the same time, they provide what's called dead agent material in Scientology about people like Apostate Alex. They'll provide that to law enforcement and city officials, trying to discredit the former members and the people who are sharing their stories about Scientology and their experiences. So something to keep an eye on. I'm going to link it down below along with everything else that we're talking about today after this video. Okay, for this next thing, we got to wake up the Office of Special Affairs because this is disturbing. There's actually quite a bit of disturbing things we're going to talk about today, including later in this video. We're going to talk about a couple interviews I've done recently. And y'all, yesterday, what is today? So yesterday I skipped my recap in the morning. Jon Atack broke me the night before. And you have to see that interview. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit, but I just needed a little bit more time to step back and process so much of what I learned. There is a lot coming forward and more truth about Scientology and its history coming out. It's a lot, and it can be a lot to process. So let's take a look at, oh wait, I got to wake up the Office of Special Affairs. David Miscavige, wake up your people. Office of Special Affairs. It is Wednesday. Before Thursday, 2:00, when your week ends, where you must turn in your statistics. And I know you have to keep track of not just positive press about Scientology, but negative press as well. So I want to make sure you're front and center for all the stories we're going over today, because we know that you are overworked, underpaid, and very likely on rice and beans. So Pay attention. We're going to go look at have y'all heard of Mace Kingsley? I think many of you have. Put a 1 in the chat if you're already familiar with Mace Kingsley. Mace Kingsley is a Scientology front group that has existed since my kids were little. In fact, probably since I was a child as well, or at least young. I don't remember when it started, but it was basically started by 2 Scientologists, Carol Mace and somebody Kingsley. I always forget her. No. Debbie Mace. Debbie Mace and Carol Kingsley. Okay, good. Keep those 1s coming if you've heard of Mace Kingsley already. Hey, Kayla Brennan. Cubana Mayors. You guys have all heard of it? Okay, keep that coming. So Mace Kingsley is still in existence. And what do? They specialize in children, in auditing children and getting children through Scientology's purification rundown, where they do hours in a sauna each day. You're supposed to do 5 hours and take dangerous levels of niacin, which we know, like we've looked at the research on it. It's just like, So Mace Kingsley, I was actually researching for another story and I came upon Mace Kingsley's Facebook page and was like, oh my goodness. So let's take a look at what that is. Mace Kingsley, this location is in Clearwater. It's called the Mace Kingsley Family Center International. And they basically provide Scientology services for children. And I'm talking young children as well. Look at this little guy here. They block out the names on their Facebook page. And it also looks like they use some stock images too for some of this. But here is, like, for example, a success. And that does look like a stock image. This is written by a child, an 11-year-old child. I really enjoyed my time here and I liked that everyone is so nice. I was doing the ethics and OW write-up. Now, OW write-up, that's overt and withholds. So that in Scientology is part of like your confession, but you're writing it down, what your overt, your harmful acts are. That's what they're called in Scientology. And you have to be very specific. You have to include the time, the place, the form, the event, all of the details. Those are the words that Scientology actually uses. So this 11-year-old is having to write down what, who knows what it was that this kid did or was involved with, but get into detail about it. So this is what the kid was doing. They were doing this ethics, overt and withholds write-up, and I felt way better after doing it. I know I'm going to be better later on in life. I love my auditor so much. I love the way she does her sessions. I hope she is my auditor again. I also got that I could be more open to my family. I got help on how to handle mean people too. Now that's not a bad thing, depending on what that help looked like. I am now able to communicate to people better. I noticed that after I did the overt and withhold write-up, my postulates have been working better. And postulates in Scientology is basically that, like, positive thinking, holding in your mind how you want something to be. It's what L. Ron Hubbard refers to. The most similar thing is like manifestation. There are so many of these on here where you can see how young these kids are doing their auditing programs. I don't even know what some of these kids at their age, like, how do you even, what are you even going to do with a child that age? And they even quote L. Ron Hubbard, and this is L. Ron Hubbard. But I can tell you this, that if you can give a child a good release, and in Scientology, that means like a win, being freed from something. If you can straighten him out, so forth, in his early years, you have done a very great deal for him, because these are the years in which he learns things, and you have made it possible for him to fill his standard banks and to think straight early enough so that he has an enormous advantage in life. And whatever you can practice, and wherever you can practice Dianetics on children, by all means do so. So that's L. Ron Hubbard encouraging this as well. And I know it's not news to you guys that auditing children is not a good thing. Now, there are very simple auditing procedures that they would call auditing, which could be as simple as doing what's called like a locational, having the kid look around or point to things or touch items. But you're getting into like this, where you're having an 11-year-old write down their crimes. their overt, their acts, their sins, their transgressions. So you're already grooming this kid for some security checking in Scientology, because you're going to be used to that. You're going to be used to the idea that you have to disclose all to Scientology. And in my mind, in my opinion, that is part of the grooming process to then later get them into the Sea Organization, because that is the overall goal with getting kids into Scientology early on, is so that that mind control just can happen sooner. Now, from a parent perspective, Scientology parents aren't taking their kids to Mace Kingsley because they think they're being brainwashed or being harmed. They believe that this is helping their child. They're doing it from a place of love. It is just misguided because we know that Scientology does not actually help children, and many of the practices in Scientology are abusive and result in a lot of damage. So I'm going to link that down below in case you want to become even more mortified. Bushman Bucket says, wait, they're adults trapped in kids' bodies, but they have to learn still? Wouldn't the kids know it all already? Well, Bushman, one of many contradictions in Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard is not known for being consistent and making a ton of sense. It's a lot of nonsense. In fact, later in this video, we're going to look at an interview I did last night with a psychologist who gives his 2 cents on a lot of this. Now, let's take a look at an article from the Underground Bunker. Tony Ortega covered this story. There is a Clearwater man, a missing Clearwater diver with Scientology ties. Sounds like he's a Scientologist, and not just current Scientologists, but former Scientologists are distraught and upset by this. There's actually a GoFundMe to raise money because it sounds like authorities stopped their search, and now they're raising money to get some equipment out there to try and locate him. And I'm sure it's a recovery mission at this point, but it is interesting because this involves former Scientologists as well as current Scientologists who knew him. And apparently this happened 65 miles off the coast of Naples. And his name is Drake Sweet, 36-year-old filmmaker and experienced diver. And he also happens to be a Scientologist. When he didn't resurface, his diving partner put out an emergency beacon that resulted in a massive search. But on Saturday, the Coast Guard announced that it was suspending its efforts. So this is where his friends and family started coming together. They created a GoFundMe, and they did share an update as well, where, let's see, here it is. So this was an update just yesterday, where they were saying their weather window reopens, it shuts on Friday. And so today, and they probably already out there or have done this because it was supposed to be at 6 a.m., a boat equipped with a yellowfin side scanner was going to be deployed to the wreck to scan a 1.5 mile radius. So they are still fundraising for this. They've raised $113,000 and their goal was $75,000. And it's interesting because there are one thing that the Underground Bunker article went into is some very familiar names that you might recognize. And I'll link the article down below so that you can check it out. And I mean, that's just devastating. And hopefully they can come together to locate his body and have it returned to his family. Let's see now. Do you guys know Gerry Armstrong? He is a Scientologist, former Scientologist, who, oh my goodness, he had been speaking out against Scientology for years. He experienced some horrific fair game tactics. And some of you sent me this clip. This is from some time ago. I think this is from Jon Atack's channel, where Gerry Armstrong is speaking about the lengths that Scientology will go to based on his experience. And let's see, I can't remember if there's spicy language or not in this, but let's take a look at this and then let's discuss.
Scientology was operated from on board during those years, and Hubbard, of course, was on board along with his family, and he managed us and managed Scientology around the world. Just give you the idea of the mentality that I had while on board. John Blew, blowing in the cult, is when you suddenly leave without getting approval. Essentially, you escape. Well, Jon escaped and he came back here to Toronto. And this made him such a dangerous person to us, someone who would expose the operations of the organization, that I recall a conversation that I had where we seriously talked about getting a gun and going and assassinating John McClane.
A man who left Scientology, who blew Scientology. And I don't know the exact year of that, but you can tell that was Jon Atack there as well. And again, the full video, this is from a clip on Jon Atack's channel. And that is just disturbing, you know, that they discussed it. And the conversation I had with Jon Atack a couple nights ago, and what I'm going to do, and I already did one, I'm going through my interviews with Jon Atack and I'm editing down shorter pieces of it that I can put on my channel and put in a playlist so people can quickly go to it. Oh, you want to know the Scientology ties to Charles Manson? Look right here. Oh, you want to know more about, you know, Operation Snow White? Look right here. All of these to make it easily accessible. When I do an interview, it can go 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I'm working on doing that so that people can get that information just boom, just kind of quickly like that. Let's see now. Oh, did you guys see that Moose on the Loose was in Chicago and he met up with trashy V12 BMW who live streams and protests Scientology out there? I love when we're seeing when worlds collide, when people come together that I watch who are streaming, and I wanted to share this here. This is from Moose on the Loose.
How you doing, Grandma? How about you? Doing good. I just got into Chicago. Didn't realize we were stopping. Oh, for sure. And then I was like, I'm 25 minutes outside, so I have to be.
Hell yeah. Glad to meet you.
Wait, look. Hold on. Hey, oh, I'm zoomed in as hell. This is my first time using my gift.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
So what's up?
What's up, man? I was chilling out here for a few hours, and then I just went to go check out the moon.
Check it out. I will link it down below. You can see Moose on the Loose there, and Trashy V12 BMW has been out there more often as well in Chicago. And I love that Moose on the Loose has been to about 6 different Scientology organizations going in and live streaming and protesting Scientology. I love it. And I love seeing people meet each other that way who are also doing this. I just geek out. I think it's the most fun thing ever to see those collaborations and people coming together over their desire to expose Scientology and get people to understand why this is not just another religion or just a choice that somebody makes. This is a dangerous family destroying human trafficking cult. And my hope is that they understand why. In fact, we're going to take a look in a little bit at a reaction to the Aaron Kyro viral video about his connection to Scientology by someone with over 3 million subscribers on his channel. We're going to look at that in just a little bit. But first, let's look at a clip from the Clearwater City Council. We were talking about how Mark Bunker and others were there when they had the discussion about the street that Scientology wants to buy. So this is over at Growing Up in Scientology. Let's take a look at what Mark Bunker had to say.
Mark Bunker. The loss of a block-long city street will not hurt Clearwater. The construction of a large L. Ron Hubbard Hall will. Hubbard's unfortunate choice of Clearwater back in 1975 was the moment when our downtown's fate was doomed.
I really appreciate that Mark Bunker shares some of this history as well, because it's not just for the city council, it's for residents, it's for anybody who's watching this video. And in fact, I'm working on tomorrow, I believe Thursday afternoon, I hope to have Mark Bunker on to talk more about this. And remember, he's also a former member of the Clearwater City Council.
It has been radioactive ever since. Covert operations against the city, the mayor, the newspaper, and the U.S. government sent L. Ron Hubbard's wife and 10 other Scientology's officials to jail in the late 70s. And Hubbard himself went into hiding for the rest of his life. Not so very different from how David Miscavige hides from subpoenas today. When the city wanted to move the aquarium downtown, Scientology worked hard to stop that. Miscavige didn't want strangers in his backyard.
And that, to me, is one of the most important points that I feel they're either choosing not to see, or Scientology just has the city council so convinced that they're just going to open their doors and open their arms to the community. It's creepy. How many videos have been done, even just here on YouTube, of other creators touring Clearwater or doing content on why Clearwater is so creepy? It's because of Scientology. They're synonymous at this point. Clearwater, Scientology, Scientology, Clearwater.
But he sure wanted that property. And that when he didn't get it, he orchestrated this scheme to purchase all the remaining property downtown while lying about it the entire time. Now Miscavige wants you to trust that he is a man of his words.
Right.
He is not. A man of his words would not treat the city this way. It may not be possible to stop the construction of the L. Ron Hubbard Hall, a monument to the biggest humbug of the 20th century, but you don't have to make it easy.
And that, again, is a good point. They already have the land. Scientology doesn't need this street to build L. Ron Hubbard Hall. What they want to do is take, have it where it's right connected to the park and get rid of that road going through, and which then forces people to then drive right by Scientology, which maybe that's the idea. And from what I understand, like, this leads, like, you got to go this way to get to the beach. So he's making so many great points.
Hold off on selling the street until Miscavige comes through with everything he promised. 3 buildings being renovated downtown doesn't begin to match what Miscavige promised you. And that is a drop in the bucket.
And this is the other piece I cannot wait to talk to Mark Bunker about, is how did they just forget? Do they have selective amnesia? All the promises that David Miscavige and Scientology has been making for years? All of it, and how much has not come to fruition. Listen to the business owners also at the city council. Business owners came up who are very involved in the community and spoke their piece as well. And they make these points. Scientology is not going to create an environment where people are going to want to flock there, where tourists are going to want to come and go there. And the other thing, they keep saying it's going to bring so many people to downtown Clearwater. No, it's not. There aren't more people who are going to come because there's an L. Ron Hubbard Hall. They would already be there. Scientologists come to Clearwater to go to Flag. There is barely any room for them to do anything else. What are they going to do? They're not going to go to a piano bar. You can't drink alcohol within 24 hours of doing a Scientology service. Anyone coming to town for services at Flag is not going to be doing any drinking, is not going to be doing anything fun, let's be honest, because you have to be there 24/7. They're there to support Scientology, and Scientology itself, if, they're going to always have a bias towards Scientology owned and run businesses because they can control things. They can control the narrative. When you're there, if you have Scientologists coming from other parts of the country, going into local businesses in Clearwater and somehow being exposed to the truth about Scientology, they can't have that. When my daughter Shelby was there training in Clearwater years ago, before we broke her out of there, she told me that if there was a newspaper article with something negative about Scientology, or if there were protesters out there, the students were told that they were physically at risk, that it was a danger for them to be outside. And so they weren't allowed to go to stores in Clearwater. And this was because Scientology doesn't want Scientologists, especially those coming from out of town, to see what a crap show it is in Clearwater and what the community really thinks of them. They want to pretend and put forth this facade of, look at this beautiful office. And it is. I mean, Scientology does build some nice spaces, but they are empty. Look at the Scientology Information Center, where any of the Clearwater crew on a Friday night, you can see it, and it is empty. That's where Aaron Smith-Levin goes in and says, says hey to Pat Harney. It's just not happening. It is just not happening that way. And they're really far down the road on this. And honestly, I think they're going to just get it pushed through. This is something that's been going on for a long time. Again, David Miscavige had one-on-one meetings with these people based on an earlier article that I read. And they're, we'll see what happens. I'm flabbergasted. I just don't get how they don't get, this is not going to be what you think it is. It is going to continue to hurt Clearwater just as it has this entire time and turn it into this ghost town. Scientologists aren't going to be running around frequenting shops and doing all of that. No, they'll go to a Scientology shop for their vitamins or whatever, things like that. But they're not going to be going to other businesses and frequenting them. They're not going to be bringing tons of people to downtown Clearwater. Who? What Scientologists? They lie about their numbers. There aren't this huge amount. Ruth Eckerd Hall holds 2,800 people. That is where they have their big Scientology events. So let's say they filled every seat. This is one of the biggest propaganda events that Scientology puts on. It's mandatory attendance. Sea Org members have to attend. Staff members have to attend. And they barely fill that place if they even do. So who's coming? Nobody's coming. It's all BS so that Scientology can have it even more of a chokehold on Clearwater, on downtown Clearwater, to create this Scientology world and community. And it is not going to be inclusive. Who's going to decide who goes into these businesses and who doesn't? Scientology, some of the building owners, they're already exercising kind of a next level of control. So even if this does get pushed through, it's not going to be without pushback. It's not going to be without further exposure of what Scientology is actually doing and their history in Clearwater. It's going to constantly be in the news and be something that they have to deal with. Buckled Up Buttercup says 1.3 million sounds like a pittance for a public street. I guess they had 3 evaluations done to determine the fair market cost of this property, this street, and somehow they landed on 1.3 million, which again, I think it's interesting. All right, so now where are we at here? Okay, oh my gosh, we got to talk about my interview with Jordan Horan, the psychologist, last night. Oh my gosh. I know I say this all the time. You got to see this video, but seriously, you got to see this video. Jordan is the gentleman with a huge background in mental health. He has a master's degree in psychology. He teaches, and we first were introduced to him last week when we were watching a city council meeting in Portage City, Michigan, where they were trying to push through this L. Ron Hubbard Day. And Jordan and others stood up and they spoke and they shared. And I tracked him down and asked him to come do an interview. And we talked about so many things, but to hear from somebody with a legitimate background in mental health, have him react to some Scientology nonsense was incredible. I'm going to share a couple clips with you. Let's see. Let's check out this one first.
I wanted to say another thing that I was thinking about, because my mind keeps going to the people that are still in my mind ever since I heard you and talking about leaving and how can we help people leave. I keep going back to, I'm wondering if when people are still in, I'm going to take a guess that a lot of people feel maybe a lot of shame and guilt of this is my fault, right? Or say if they joined later or whatever, and you get a lot of that shame and guilt. And I think those emotions, on top of Scientology's tricks, those emotions, I wonder if are also weighing people down, chaining people down. So I'm wondering for people who are in that position, is if they can give themselves some grace, give themselves some, this wasn't all my fault. Yes, we make choice, whatever. but give yourself that grace to then be able to get out. Like if that's the last thing holding you back, give yourself that peace, give yourself that grace, and then, you know, doing whatever else you can. That's where my mind just keeps going. So I guess if I'm speaking to anybody out there still in, it's like, and I also heard you say too, I was also really touched. In one of your videos, you said, I'm really appreciative for all the viewers. These people, you know, in Scientology, they tell us the outside world, everybody's bad and whatever. She's like, you were saying, like, everybody's been super, super helpful. Like, people want to help. People want to support. It's getting connected with that, finding those people, which can be kind of difficult. But there are people here. There are people that want to help.
He shared so much. We even talked about what are effective ways for us to approach or communicate with Scientologists. If you're out live streaming or protesting and have an opportunity for a connection. And he was very clear where he said, you know, yelling at them, being antagonistic and aggressive towards them will just drive them right back in, which, you know, we've kind of suspected. And he talked more about having that compassion. And I love what he said about the shame, because he's dead on about that. A lot of people, when they want to leave Scientology, the shame is part of it, or they leave Scientology and the shame is part of it. Because even though you wake up, I'll use myself as an example, where I knew I wanted to leave Scientology, but they mess with your head so much that there's a lot of shame tied to it. Why did I let this go on for such a long time? And you can really beat yourself up that way, and it can get in the way of people actually leaving. So I loved his approach, and I put a lot of weight into what he said because he's a psychologist. He has a background in mental health treatment and therapy. And so when we had these conversations about Scientology, I can raise awareness. I can bring stories to you guys, but I don't have the background. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. Having somebody like him be able to respond to some Scientology nonsense and what people are experiencing, I think can be very helpful in not just helping people leave Scientology, but helping anyone who has been in a high control group or another cult, who has gone through some abuse or trauma in their life. I was really taken aback by the level of compassion, because again, in Scientology, it's what are your overts? What are your crimes? It's never, no compassion and empathy. And it continues to pleasantly surprise me how mental health professionals, good ones, not all, because some people are a-holes no matter what you do for a living, are so compassionate and really want to help. And in talking to him, I really got the idea that this is what he wants. This is why he's in the field that he's in. He wants to help people. This is why he teaches. Many of his students were in the chat last night asking some great questions, watching the video. He had said they'd get extra credit. And I thought, how wonderful is that? Now this is a conversation that will be continued in the school that he teaches at, and maybe more. And I think that's more of what needs to occur. And Jordan brought that up as well. When he was starting to do research into Scientology, and he is a researcher, he is the guy that stood up at the city council meeting in Portage City, Michigan, and talked about how there are no peer-reviewed studies that back up these claims that L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology are making, especially when it comes to Dianetics. It's just not true. There's not one source to the troubles that people have, the reactive mind or body Satans, depending on where you're at in Scientology. So he just brought so much great information, and it's a lengthy video, but pop in some earbuds and, do what you do. If you got to do it in pieces. I thought it was super informative. We're going to get together again next week. I'm going to have him back. I'm putting together some Scientology practices and beliefs, and I want him to react to it. I want to hear from him as somebody who works in the field of psychology. What do you think about this? We even got into the training routines and how and why that is harmful for people, what that does to kids growing up doing these training routines. And he talks about that. It's just full of information. I've got another clip that I wanted to share from that same interview. So let me get that pulled up here. for you. Take a look at this.
You know, so again, I kind of go back to that too, of like, it is possible, I guess is what I'm saying. And obviously easier said than done. But you, again, I'm really impressed with you. You just blow my mind of like, you're this strong, incredible person. You and all these other people that are helping these people, leave this group of suffering, if you will.
They use the shame too. What they try to do when you're leaving and they know you're leaving is they try to basically mess you up as much as they possibly can. When I wanted to leave the Sea organization and that is so true. The whole idea is to make it so that you're ineffective, that you're so in your own head that you don't have the energy, the desire, the strength to stand up to Scientology. You just want to leave. And there is nothing wrong with just leaving. Just leave. Leave. What I spoke to Jordan about was how when people leave Scientology, often there is a big hesitancy to get valid help, to get valid mental health therapy, because Scientology poisons our minds against that. They tell us that psychiatrists and psychologists are evil, that they're responsible for the Holocaust, that psychiatry has been around on the whole track, that Scientology's term for forever, trillions of years, that every major nasty thing that has happened, L. Ron Hubbard attributes to psychiatry and psychiatrists. So even when you leave Scientology, if you grew up in it, especially with that point of view, it can be really difficult to feel comfortable and safe reaching out for valid help. And that's another reason why I want to have Jordan on and to talk more about this, because as a former cult member, as a former Scientologist, the empathy that comes from true help, real mental health professionals is filled with empathy. It is to help you. And he strikes me as someone who really wants to learn, and he's a researcher more about this. And I think it will be fantastic because, again, he's educating people on, they're talking about this. They're having the conversation. It's not just that, oh, Scientology is just another crazy religion. It's dangerous. It's actually dangerous. It harms people. People lose their lives over this. And that he asked me, like, what would be your message? What would be the thing you'd want to communicate, like, to his students? And for me, that's it. That's a big message for me. Scientology is not just some other choice. It is dangerous and it costs people their lives. And they try to hide behind this. Well, we're just another religion. We're a new religion. That's why it seems weird. No, I mean, okay, fine. Some of the beliefs do seem weird because you're new. I'll give you that. But your abusive practices are the problem. Your enforced disconnection. I can go on and on. You guys know what the things are. But that is what I feel like we're starting to, the more that people who can speak on it from like somebody like him with his background and back those things up, I think the better. It will help other people understand why Scientology is dangerous. It's just not another choice in religion. Okay, let's get to Jon Atack and how he broke me. We did this interview. I went and I edited down the video to be a separate video specifically about Charles Manson and his connection to Scientology. This gave me nightmares. There's so much in the whole video. I'm going to share a clip from where he specifically talks about Charles Manson. I'm going to show you the beginning here. Hold on. Let's pull this up. Take a look.
I shouldn't be explaining this. I shouldn't be saying this because these are big scoop secrets that nobody in the world knows. When the FBI performed the largest raid in their history on the Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles Scientology organizations in July 1977, they got what is called a red box. The red boxes the contents were to be destroyed if there was a raid. And the Guardian's office let them get the red boxes.
Now, remember, the Guardian's office is the Office of Special Affairs before they rebranded to the Office of Special Affairs. And when the FBI raid, again, one of the biggest raids in FBI history, happened in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, they actually got their hands on the red boxes.
And one of the red boxes had the Manson documents in it. and I have them. The source for my information, it's just to say this isn't something I read in the comic books. This is Scientology's own file on Manson that I have.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Aloha. I'm okay. We don't need to watch the beginning of that there. I am going to link it below. Yes. Happy Healing Train. This was so scary to hear about Manson and to hear about how he used Scientology. Jon Atack goes as far to say that he believes that if it weren't for Scientology, if it weren't for the influence of Scientology on Charles Manson, that though the LaBianca and Tate murders would not have happened. And I was like, man, that is saying a lot, but he backs it up. He explains why that is. And it made a lot of sense to me. PUVOD. Aloha, and thank you so much for becoming a member of the channel. I appreciate that. There's a link in the description of this video. Being a member of the channel is another way that helps support the channel and make it possible to do what I'm doing. So if you guys are interested in that, do check it out. I do a weekly members only live. In fact, I'm going to do one this Thursday. I think we're going to do it at about 4:30. It's a little bit of a moving target, but I appreciate all of you who have been doing memberships and helping out that way, truly. All right, now let's see here. Okay, we got to talk about this. Hold on, though. I want to make sure. Yeah, Kayla, another one you got to watch. It just, oh my gosh, it just was the whole interview, not just the video on Charles Manson, but there's a whole other bombs that Jon Atack drops in this video, things I had never heard about L. Ron Hubbard and specifically David Miscavige that helped me put started connecting dots. Cause I always wondered, like, why did David Miscavige have Pat Broker followed for decades at the cost of tens of thousands of dollars a month? Pat Broker and Annie Broker were the two people that L. Ron Hubbard named as loyal officers that were supposed to run Scientology. But after L. Ron Hubbard's death, David Miscavige slid in, did a coup, and took over Scientology. And Jon Atack has a lot to say about that, how David Miscavige did it. And he has some allegations that he says he can back up that, again, because I always wondered, why did David Miscavige have Pat Broker followed for decades and decades when Pat Broker has never come forward and said anything about it that I'm aware of? And Jon Atack says that he alleges that David Miscavige and Pat Broker would take money when L. Ron Hubbard was still alive and go to Vegas and spend it on prostitutes. I had never heard that before. And if I did, I completely blocked it out. And there was just one thing after another thing after another about this. But it makes sense. If that is true, then of course, David Miscavige would want to keep close tabs on the people he was doing shenanigans with. It made sense at that point. So I was like, oh, okay, that does make sense. Alleged, but it makes sense. And before I forget, today at 1 p.m. Central, I'm doing an interview with Danielle Chamberlain. She is a former Scientologist. So I hope you can join. If you can't catch it live, catch it on the replay. But another interview that I'm really looking forward to. I'm still so disturbed by that, that interview, but in good ways, because there's a lot of information there. It's difficult sometimes to talk about, but so necessary. And a lot of this I'm finding out for the first time because I had my own reasons for leaving Scientology when I did. But when you find out the level of criminality that occurs within Scientology, it just blows your mind. It just does. And anything you guys can do to help get the word out about these interviews, I would really appreciate that because there's so much information in here. It's literally exposing, pulling back the curtain on Scientology with a lot of details. And I would appreciate that because I think more people needs to learn about this. So whether you share it on social, however you do it, I would appreciate that because these, and again, I'm creating a playlist where I'm going to create some smaller videos so people can easily just go, oh, they can just go to those topics. Thank you, Sandy McKenna. Natalie's on fire with these interviews. I enjoy doing it, but it is difficult. So I really would appreciate your guys' support in spreading the word and getting the word out about this so more people see it, because that makes it worthwhile when it really gets out and more people can learn about it. I had to spend some time in my closet after talking to Jon Atack this last time, and that's like where I go because it's windowless. I can just close the door. You know, it's a walk-in closet, so it's not super tiny, but it's small enough that for me, it helps me kind of reset my nervous system and calm down when I'm just being hit with so much. I think I even dropped an F-bomb on that video, which you guys have never heard me do, I don't think. It was too much at one point, but it is necessary. It really is. Linda Lou, yes, it blows your mind to realize just how depraved people can be. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And Deanna, I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad that you're going to be watching with Danielle later today. Okay, so we got to talk about this video that Asmongold he's a Twitch streamer. He's on YouTube. He's got over 3 million subscribers just on YouTube. And he did a reaction video to the viral video going around by Sunny V12 about Aaron Kyro and Scientology. And I watched this, and in the beginning part, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is like getting it wrong. But as he goes through the video, I think it starts opening his eyes about the truth about Scientology. Because when he starts out, it's like, well, it's just another religion. And that is a button for me. It's not just another religion. It's not just another choice. It is an organization that participates in human trafficking and covering up all kinds of SA, including that of children. It is an organization that churns out a crazy amount and number of people who suffer from mental health issues because of their association with Scientology and not getting proper care and having their mental health be damaged even more by this human trafficking cult. So when people say, it's just, it's like any religion. No, it's not. It's actually not. It's not. I've not heard of half of the stuff that happens to former members who have come out and shared their stories about Scientology, just the harassment alone that can go on. So let's take a look at a clip, but huge channel. The good thing here is that one video by Sunny V12 has reached well over 1 million views. I don't even know what the latest number is. Might be closer to 2. But the reaction videos being generated are reaching even more. So the message that Scientology is a family-destroying human trafficking cult is reaching even more people. And what excites me about the skateboard world is, or even this Asmon, who many of you might not be familiar with. I wasn't familiar with it, but I'm just not his demographic. He reaches a ton of people. So this excites me that these much larger channels are addressing this connection between Aaron Kyro and Scientology, but more importantly, the abusive practices of Scientology. And their viewers, the young people who are watching his videos and even like Ricky Glazier's videos in the skateboarding community is huge. And it's just building and building, and more people are finding out the truth about Scientology. So let's take a look at a clip from this reaction video that he was doing.
Scientology is massively worse than other religions. I don't know enough about it. Like I'm mainly joking around. Like I've heard that Scientology is very corrosive. I've watched a few videos about it and about how some of the people that are running it are weird guys. But I'm just saying that I don't know everything about it. It's very bad. Yeah, I have no idea. It's a cult. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. I think there's a lot of cults. But either way, yeah, this whole thing is. I think that's what really rubs people the wrong way, is you have a person who's making, theoretically millions of dollars doing this, and this happens.
Red, did he have this much?
And my hope too is that he does look deeper into this and continues to share about it. And as he goes through the video, you can see he starts realizing, well, wait a minute, actually, this is not just some other religion. Sandy McKenna says, other religions might baptize you. Scientology audits you for thousands. Very true. Oh, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. No, it has passed. It has passed. Asen says, my son watches this dude regularly. And that's what has me excited. They're talking about it. Months ago, a year ago, whenever it was that we first started talking here on my channel about Aaron Kyro, I knew this would explode at some point because of the large community that followed Aaron Kyro and Braille skateboarding. And that is happening. There's these huge channels are starting to cover it. And I think it is fantastic because it's educating people about the dangers of Scientology. And they reach so many young people that it just really warms my heart, because that is kind of the goal, is to inoculate people against cults and high control groups. And you do that through education. When you understand and you can recognize the signs, you are way less likely to fall for it. When you understand that what valid therapy and what valid mental health treatment looks like, then you'll more likely be seeking that out. And you'll recognize the red flag should an organization like Scientology get their grips on you. Sandy says, other religions build churches. Scientology buys entire city blocks and keeps them empty. Exactly. It's a physical manifestation of what really happens in Scientology. You know, not a lot going on. And most of the energy is put into covering up, stopping people from leaving, trying to stop people from speaking out. Hunter Bay says, the interview with Jon Atack just shows that Miscavige has been playing the long game for quite a while. Very true. Very true. And I've said this so many times on my channel. Scientology does play the long game. They can be very reactionary, because David Miscavige is very reactionary. I don't know the man, but based on everything that I've read and firsthand reports from former Sea Org members, he's just a big baby and doesn't have a lot of emotional regulation going on. It can be very reactive. And we see that play out. But at the same time, they do play the long game, with their court cases, everything. Remember, Scientology wants to put as many stops in the way of somebody exposing Scientology or talking about Scientology, and they'll try to tie somebody up in court forever. Just to do that, just to drain resources, just to do that. Okay, let's take a look now. Jesse says, therapy is cheaper than Scientology. It is. That is so correct. Asmon is a legend. Love this dude. Yeah, maybe get into it. If you watch his video, go ahead and share your thoughts too in the comments. I would like to encourage him to do a deeper dive and look more into this. It's a fascinating topic. I think people like Ricky Glazier on his channel, people are interested in learning more. There's a great opportunity here, I think, to be able to educate and share with people why this is not just another religion. This is not just another cult. Scientology is said to be the most difficult cult to recover from. Takes an average of 12 and a half years. It takes 3-4 times as long to deprogram or have an intervention with somebody in Scientology compared to other cults. I mean, it really is. You guys know I'm preaching to the choir here. All right, let's see. Is this, I think I have another clip here actually from that video, or this is the same one. I can't remember now. So let's look.
Much money when they had Carlos sleeping in the warehouse like a homeless person, leading people to make a realization. I heard that most of the profits of Braille go to donations to Scientology instead of to the skaters that make it what it is. The skaters were running all the brand deals whilst barely being paid.
It's like you want us to be the face saying, hey, buy this product, do this thing. And then like we gain nothing from the brand deal. Like we have sponsors of our.
And that's Ricky Glazier. For those of you that don't know, he also has a large channel on YouTube, and he has Ricky Glazier Reacts, where he did a reaction video. And we shared that the other day to a video I did about Aaron Kyro and Scientology, and one that Aaron Smith-Levin at Growing Up in Scientology did as well.
Our own as well. We have sponsors that.
He's fucking right, man. This is absolutely true. Yeah.
Conflict with this brand deal that you're going to try to make us go and do on our own. And we are getting nothing but our normal low wage.
And even built.
That was surprising to me when I first started hearing that Aaron Kyro was using these guys to basically be the brand, do the work, but not actually compensating them. And again, when you're trained under David Miscavige in Scientology, you do not value your people. That goes away. What you're doing to save the planet is so much more important. So it justifies the mistreatment of people because people are replaceable. That's how it's seen in Scientology. And the sad thing, I don't know Aaron Kyro, but I just have this feeling, this is speculation on my part, that that's not really who he is, that he's not somebody who wants to mistreat people this way. I think he's undergone a lot of indoctrination. Aaron Kyro is on operating Thetan level 7, as far as I know. And that's an intense level where you're getting rid of body Thetans that could be on the moon, that could be thousands of miles away, not just attached to you. He is the executive director of Scientology in San Francisco. His whole job is to get new people in and deliver Scientology and Dianetics to them. So I'm just glad that this is coming out and people are actually doing more videos about it and raising awareness. And I am thrilled that it is people who reach a younger audience, because my demographic here, when I look at my numbers, is, the majority of my audience is women over 50. And so where I'm reaching a lot of people in that area, and there's a range, but it's just the majority. But to see other channels who reach a lot younger audience talking about this really warms my heart. It does. I love it. I love when worlds collide, and I see that happening. And I think it's an opportunity to work together, even for former Scientologists, to, even if these other channels are open to sharing their stories, to help educate their audiences even more on why Scientology is so harmful. So if you're watching any of these videos, get in those comments and let them know what you think, or suggest other channels or they can check out to learn more about what Scientology actually is, with the hopes that they'll amplify that message with their audiences. Now, I want to take a look at some of the question of the day answers. And our question is, if you could give Tom Cruise one piece of life advice, what would it be? Abigail says, spend time with your family. Spend time with your family. Me and Taz says, Tom Cruise, grow up. Put your big boy pants on and do the right thing for your family. Yeah, this is the same man, too, who kicked his niece out. His teenage niece kissed a boy and she liked it. He saw it on a security camera, banished her for 2 years. Girl didn't see her mom, allegedly. That was what was being reported. Arkansas Flamingo says she would tell Tom Cruise, besides leaving Scientology, I'd tell him to give up on getting a girlfriend. He's not very good at it. That is true. It's interesting to me that Tom Cruise, who is supposed to be like the most dedicated Scientologist per David Miscavige, still struggles with relationships. It's kind of like, that's got to be a point of embarrassment for them, even though it shouldn't be. Many people struggle with relationships. The difference is, most of us aren't running around saying that we are the authority on the mind, that we know the history of psychiatry. You're glib, Matt Lauer. We're not running around doing that. We're not, but he is. You don't hear me over here like saying like, hey, you know what? I am the authority on relationships and I'm going to give you guys advice. I will still give you advice in my opinion, but I'm not running around trying to, be all that. And I think that's where Tom Cruise gets in trouble in that way. It's like, you should just kind of stay in your lane and, stick to acting, and you can still have opinions, but he has taken it too far. Stasia says she would tell Tom Cruise, Tom, I thought Scientology and Dianetics could fix everything. So why all the plastic surgery? Better get a security check on that. Marcy says, Tom, you could be away from the cult and really helping people and see your children. That's right. As far as we know, he hasn't seen Suri Cruise. Power lies to paralyze to Tom Cruise. Put down the cans and step away from the meter. Exactly. Power Lies to Paralyze does a lot of fantastic content. You got to go over there and subscribe on how the e-meter affects physically an individual. I did not know this. And I find it absolutely fascinating. From a poet, Brian says, please, Tom, just stop. For the love of Pete, just stop. Linda Lou says, therapy does a body good. My daughter's answer. That's a good one for Tom Cruise. Bina would tell Tom Cruise, walk towards the light, Tom. Walk towards the light. Northern Girl just wants to tell him, be a better father. Maybe don't practice disconnecting from your daughter. Sharona would say, dear Tommy boy, there are much better plastic surgeons out there. With all of your money, surely you could find a better one. Oh, and stop using slave labor. Yeah, definitely on the slave labor, because that's something that he has done and been involved in. Hunter Bay, Tom, wake up. This is a real world, and I thought you were a little intelligent. Ooh, good one. Cody Quinn, Tom Cruise, don't trust David Miscavige. Julie O'Connell, Tom Cruise, stop creating suppression for women. Exactly. I don't know another Scientologist in the history of Scientology that I'm aware of who had been married to no less than 3 alleged suppressive people. Tom Cruise marries a woman and then she leaves Scientology. Mimi Rogers, Katie Holmes, Nicole Kidman. All of them were Scientologists. All of them left after being with Tom Cruise. Now, Katie Holmes and Nicole Kidman got into Scientology through Tom Cruise, but still, I feel like that says a lot. It so says a lot. And that's why I imagine David Miscavige being on the phone with Tom Cruise like, hey, Tom, here's the thing. We can't afford to lose any more female Scientologists. You think you can maybe date outside of Scientology? That's how I imagine it in my mind. Let's see. DP Neverend would say, Tom Cruise, get over yourself. Michelle Ball would say, Tom, don't join. Run the other way fast. Candace says, Tommy boy, you need a detox of Scientology. Gosh, that's true. Fish Mom 2011, break up with Scientology before trying to enter another human relationship. David Miscavige is a third wheel, not a wingman. Ooh, Fish Mom, that's a good one. That's actually a really good one. Sweet Elizabeth's like, Tom, just leave Scientology as soon as possible, okay? Great gig in the sky. Move somewhere. No one knows you for 5 years. Figure out who you actually are. I don't think Tom Cruise could go anywhere where people wouldn't know who he was. But I like your advice. Figure out who you are. That is such a key piece of healing from Scientology. And in my opinion, you need a lot of space and time for that. And I don't think that he provides that for himself. Animal Audit Corner has a comment about the Clearwater situation. They already have all of Clearwater. This is Scientology. It's practically a ghost town, and they don't even pay any taxes. What makes David Miscavige think he can snap his fingers and then he'll get all he wants? Well, probably the fact that he does, he has, and he is. But we'll see. There's a couple more meetings coming up. Trashy V12 BMW says they might not know who he is in North Korea. That's true. Tom Cruise could go to North Korea and go from there. I think that's actually really wise advice. Juanita, good to see you. I would tell him stop being a culty guy because that could be the cause of your marriage fails. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I do not doubt that at all. Paralyzed to Paralyzed says LRH said the light is the lure of the implant station. Oh, I remember that. So that's probably why that person said go towards the light. That's right. I remember that from Scientology, that they would believe that that's when people say like, oh, I saw a light, that I've heard Scientologists say, don't ever go into the light because that's the implant station. It's just so wild. Sandy McKenna says, Tom Cruise giving mental health advice is like me giving NASA rocket science tips. Loud and wildly unqualified. If you guys have not been catching Sandy McKenna when she's been protesting Friday nights with the Clearwater crew, you got to check it out. You got to go to Sinners and Secrets. Tell me if I got that wrong, Sandy. I think that's right. Subscribe. She live streams from that channel, from Sinners and Secrets. But what's cool is because Sandy is so familiar with Clearwater, you also get a tour of the area and learn all kinds of things. She does it with a lot of humor. And I like to go between all of them on Friday nights. It's like my fun Friday night plans, but absolutely Sinners and Secrets if you're not already subscribed. You can also, of course, obviously Aaron Smith-Levin, Growing Up in Scientology is there Friday nights. Dusty Soda Dispenser, Jamie Castro's out there. Farrell Cheryl on the Loose is streaming usually. Eric is out there, but she doesn't have a channel. And I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. Arkansas Flamingo says Sinners and Secrets is so good. On top of that, Sinners and Secrets puts out some amazing content too about Scientology and other topics that are very culty. So check it out. So again, I am going to go get set up. I've got that interview coming up. Oh, thank you, Nancy. She's sharing a link to Sinners and Secrets, so you can subscribe there. I'm very excited to be talking with Daniel Chamberlain later today, 1:00 Central. And if you don't make it, catch it on the replay. I'm going to go link everything down below that we talked about. And your homework, should you choose to accept this assignment, is to watch the Jon Atack interview and my interview with Jordan from the psychologist who spoke out at the Portage City Council meeting. You can find that all on my channel under live, or the video that's just about Charles Manson is under videos on my channel. So please do check that out. And Professor Kakan says, don't cross the streams. I love that on a phone, if you pull up and you're watching like on Friday night, you can scroll back and forth between them really quick on the phone. So you're just going, up, down, and you can actually watch them all. I love that. Trashy V12 BMW says, watching the interview with Jordan as soon as you end. I love that, Trashy. I would love to hear what you think about it. If y'all could do me a solid and hit that like, and also hit that subscribe as well, I'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, I hope y'all get out and have an amazing cult-free day.